Welcome everyone. Welcome to the release webinar for Centering Communities in Canopy Solutions, a new grant program with the DNR. My name is Molly Cotting. I use she, her pronouns, and I work for the DNR as our Urban and Community Forestry Environmental Justice Coordinator. I have the good fortune of facilitating our webinar today, and we're going to be reviewing this grant opportunity through the Centering Communities in Canopy Solutions program. This event will be recorded and posted to our website. So today we're going to start off with going over a few WebEx house details and logistics before we dig into today's content. If you would like to turn on closed captioning, there's a small button on the bottom of the left hand of the screen that says CC on it. You can just press that and you'll turn on closed captioning or turn it off. WebEx also has limited support for low vision accessibility that works across versions of this software. You can use the high contrast scheme or zoom in on our call. Transcription will be available with this recording and it will be uploaded on our DNR UCF website. If you need additional accommodations, please feel free to email me or use the chat function to connect. Maddie Masucci is my colleague and she will be managing the background of today's meeting. Let's see, there's also a Q&A feature that we'll be using for intaking questions and answers throughout the webinar. To access this feature, you can click on the three dots on the bottom right-hand side of your screen and then select Q&A from the drop-down list that opens. You can select submit a question and that question will be posted for us to review and answer. If there are any issues with Q&A, there's also a chat feature available. The text bubble icon on the bottom right will open that chat feature. We do want you to try and submit questions through the Q&A versus the chat, but we'll do our best to monitor both and answer questions throughout and at the end of the session. All questions and chat-related content needs to be professional, respectful, and appropriate. If there are issues with inappropriate or disrespectful content, we will have to remove you from the webinar. I don't think this will be an issue today, but just wanted to include this disclaimer at the beginning. Let's see. All right, so now we're going to go over an introduction to the grant opportunity. We're going to review the request for applications, application form, budget form, and then leave time for a question and answer session at the end. So let me take a little drink here. It's amazing when you start talking how dry your mouth gets. Okay, so Centering Communities in Canopy Solutions is going to distribute $1 million in available funding through the U.S. Forest Service and the Inflation Reduction Act. This funding will help communities with the planning, managing, and evaluating of projects on both public, private, or tribal lands. We invite eligible groups to apply for grants aimed at increasing canopy equity in environmental justice areas. The DNR's Inflation Reduction Act funding benefits communities that are experiencing environmental injustice. To be eligible for this grant, 100% of grant-funded actions need to benefit communities identified by our environmental justice screening tool. And we're going to drop that tool, I think, in the link right now. Check out the chat for a link to the screening tool, which will be used to determine eligibility. So this funding will encourage organizations to involve community members in every step of urban and community forestry projects. The long-term goal of this grant is to build community and canopy power through urban and community forestry management. Communities identified in the DNR's grant screening tool have experienced environmental injustices and would particularly benefit from increased tree canopy, support with tree care costs, access to tree knowledge, and workforce opportunities. Maddie just dropped a link to determine if your community is eligible for applying for this grant. You can open up the screening tool and zoom into your community. If your community was within the shaded polygon on the map that the legend says is eligible, then you are eligible for this funding. You can view the legend for the map on the right side of this page. And if you have questions on interpreting this map, please feel free to ask them at the end of this webinar or submit your questions to our UCF email that will also be provided at the end. The data for this screening tool was compiled from 3 different mapping sources, including the Council on Environmental Quality's Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's Understanding Environmental Justice in Minnesota map, and the EPA's Environmental Justice Screening and Mapping Tool, or EJ Screen. And now we're going to review the request for application document and go over the specifications for this grant in more detail. Let's see. Just want to click on that. All right, so an overview of the RFA. Community-based nonprofits and their named partners from public and nonprofit sectors are invited to apply for grants aimed at increasing canopy equity in neighborhoods that need it most. These grants will focus on those areas we mentioned before and encourage community members to get involved in every step of the project work. With this funding from the Forest Service, the DNR has $1 million available to help communities with planning, managing, evaluating those projects. We will be awarding grants up to $100,000 and no matching funds are required. Let's talk about who is eligible for this grant. These grants are targeted towards place-based nonprofits or grassroots efforts that work in environmental justice communities. These can include neighborhood associations, community groups, and volunteer organizations. Government and educational institutions and non-place-based nonprofits can also apply, but they have to partner with environmental justice communities. This partnership is offered since smaller organizations may not be able to meet eligibility requirements on their own, and an applicant should clearly explain how their proposed projects will benefit and serve EJ communities and provide letters of commitment from environmental justice community or place-based organizations. Let's see. So as far as eligible activities, all efforts done by grantees must serve those environmental justice communities. These funds can be used for community engagement, environmental education, tree planting, pruning and maintenance activities, application of chemical treatment by licensed professionals, residential assistance for qualified homeowners to contract tree care with licensed professionals, help to establish young trees or newly planted trees with activities like watering, mulching, stem protection, and then the development of stewardship management plans. If selected, grantees may only begin spending on eligible activities once the grant contract is finalized. So all tree work should be conducted or overseen by professionals with a qualifying credential. That means that if your staff does not have accredited tree care professionals, you can also contract out for some of this work. Grant funds can be used for, but not limited to, educational and engagement materials like printing or purchasing materials for community outreach and education, staff and professional services, so paying staff for outreach, project work, or administrative tasks, and hiring outside for technical assistance or tree-related work. This can include removals, replanting, site preparation. You can also pay for that site preparation and planting activities. Preparing sites could include buying diverse tree stock, mulch, watering bags, staking materials, and protective tree wraps. And as I mentioned before, activities that need special licenses or involve safety risks should be done by licensed contractors. The purchase of project-related materials, as long as a single unit purchase is under $5,000, is allowable. And then there's kind of a laundry list of ineligible expenses. Actually, maybe, can we drop the link to the website here too? I'll be reading through this, but as you kind of dig in, pay attention to some of these as you're putting together your budgets. So costs incurred prior to the start of a fully executed contract date, purchase of trees that are listed in the noxious weed and Minnesota invasive terrestrial plants list. We have a whole bunch of species that qualify on this list, including the Amur cork tree, Amur maple, autumn olive, black locust, and so on. As we're developing planting lists, we'll work with you on that. The purchase of bald and burlap trees, so these are really large tree stocks, containerized trees larger than 20-gallon pots, and bare root trees that are larger than 2 inches, just ensuring best success for planting. Purchase of tree species that already make up 10% or more of your community's public trees, or whose family make up 20% or more of public trees, and we'll work with awardees on what this looks like in your community. The purchase of chemicals for insecticide treatment for personal application, so not a licensed professional, right? Purchases of plants such as living ground covers, sod, grass, seed, and flowers. So we're really talking about woody species here. The purchase of land or easements is not allowed. Major soil and grade changes or construction, any equipment purchases that exceed $5,000 for a single unit purchase, and then experimental practices not approved by the DNR. Thanks for letting me get through that, guys. Okay, so how do we apply? Let's start looking at different routes for accessing this grant opportunity. We are offering 2 different options for applying for this grant program, understanding that community-based groups or other applicants without experience applying for state funding would benefit from having some just additional technical assistance from our team. So we have an initial interest form available on our website. Applicants can fill out this form, submit it to our program email at ucf.dnr@state.mn.us. And when you do so, you'll get one-on-one virtual technical assistance from staff on our team. This assistance will involve reviewing your interest form for eligibility requirements, applicable activities, and any additional information that's needed before submitting a full application. These appointments will be available until Monday, October 14th, allowing our staff adequate time to respond to all interested parties. You can also start by filling out the full application if you feel comfortable, but please ensure that all sections are completed and the application is submitted by the deadline, October 28th at midnight. Pay close attention to the requested information and respond to all questions. Detailed responses and complete lists are strongly encouraged. If funded, application answers will become the grantee's work plan. So make sure enough information is provided, especially in the timeline and budget sections. These will help to serve for your complete work plan. Grantees will need to meet the objectives stated in their work plans by the end of the grant. So clearly demonstrate how the application connects to the eligible activities and make sure that there aren't any ineligible project expenses listed for grant funding. A complete application will consist of the following documents: an application form or Exhibit A. This is a Word document, and we do have instructions for following the formatting. The budget, or Attachment A. This is an Excel spreadsheet. We can't accept any format changes on this document, but you can add additional lines as needed. And then the 3-year maintenance plan, or Attachment B, if you're planting new trees. And lastly, any letters of support if you're collaborating with an outside organization. And we accept those in any format. So just to kind of recap, this is how you should submit an application. First, after reading through the request for application, please complete all parts of the application found online. Grant applicants are required to submit applications to the email Maddie just listed for our Urban and Community Forestry program. They must be received electronically, so via email, by October 28, 2024, to be considered eligible for funding. Our agency is not responsible for any technical or logistical problems causing an application to be received late. The applicant is responsible for ensuring their submission is received by DNR by the deadline, and applications received after the deadline, unfortunately, will not be eligible for consideration. All applicants will be notified by December 13th whether or not their project will be funded. Then we'll walk through, after applications are submitted, what does the review process look like and timeline. A UCF, or Urban and Community Forestry Grants Steering Committee, made up of Department of Natural Resources forestry staff and stakeholders, will recommend projects and award amounts. The steering committee will evaluate all eligible and complete applications received by the deadline. DNR will will review all committee recommendations and is responsible for final award decisions. The award decisions of the DNR are final and not subject to appeal. Here's a timeline of the review process. So our RFA was posted on Monday, September 9th. The application and interest forms are now available. We do have a due date for the initial interest forms, which kind of helps us provide that technical assistance before applications are due on the 28th. We're going to need about 4 weeks for the grant review process for our grant review committee to read proposals, provide scoring, and then make decisions. But we will be selecting projects, and those grant agreement negotiations will start in December. Then work plans will be approved, contracts executed, and grant work can begin at an estimated date of March 1st. This is a federal funding string, and so we need to have all grant work complete by September 30th, 2028 before funding expires. Let's see. There was something, made a note of reimbursement. So all funds will be rewarded on a reimbursement basis. They're going to follow a schedule that's outlined on the request for application documents at a minimum. All project work must be completed, and the full request for reimbursements have to be submitted by June 15, 2028 in order to be reimbursed for our reporting deadlines. All right, so here is where you can submit the grant application questions. It's our program email, ucf.dnr@state.mn.us. We will be posting answers to questions submitted weekly online. Questions must be submitted no later than October 22nd to be included in the website. The final component of the request for application is an evaluation score sheet. Please review this in depth and refer to the scoring sheet as you fill out your application to ensure you're meeting the scoring criteria. The broad categories we will be scoring on are project overview and need, project timeline, project budget and budget explanation, and the project impacts on priority populations, as well as communications plans. As you draft your application, ensure that you're meeting each subpoint within these categories to create a successful proposal. The application document itself, once you've reviewed the RFA in full and really have a good grasp on the content you need to include for the application for this program, please use the application document to write your application. This document has specific formatting guidelines within it, so please follow the current format outlined in the Word document and adhere to the page count requirements throughout. The first page is just some overview information about your organization. Pages 2 through 4 are questions about your project that will be scored based on that scoring rubric we just had up in the RFA document. Please ensure that you're answering these questions fully and clearly while following the formatting guidelines. You can submit this document along with the required attachments to our email by October 28th. And then, let's see, I think the only other document we don't have an example of on the stack, I do apologize, is the budget form, but I'll just quickly go over that. The budget form should be filled out full enough detail to understand where the grant fund requests are going to be allocated. Please be specific about expenses, making sure requested funds are eligible for reimbursement. A successful budget will be detailed, financially realistic, and cost-effective. No match is required, and we will not score match as a part of this application, so please know that you do not need to include those in your budget sheet. Ensure totals are accurate before your submission, and then your expenses line up with the actions that you've outlined in your application document. So we went through that very quickly, but we're going to have a lot of time for questions and answers. We're going to check the Q&A section, so please submit your questions and we'll answer them as they come in.
2 in there right now.
Yes. All right. Sounds good.
So our first one from Hannah is, could you give an example of how a SPE could apply for this grant, specifically if we do not have groups or organizations within our limits to partner with?
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Yes, we understand that local governments may not have existing relationships with groups to partner with. There's a couple of suggestions that we have. One would be to reach out to us. I can't see from the Q&A where you're located, but we do have, at least in the metro area, community groups that are looking to partner. But even if we don't, I think that's a really good use of our time to do a little bit of digging to see if there are social organizations, neighborhood associations, anything like that, if you don't have existing relationships that we could kind of foster an introduction for. And then with the caveat, you really know your communities best. So if there are supports we can give you and how to approach groups, just given our experience working with environmental justice communities and some of our partnerships, we'd be more than welcome or willing to help in that regard.
Our next one is a clarification on the deadline. At first, it was stated the deadline is 10/28 at midnight. Then in another spot in the presentation, it states.
Thank you, Beth. Yes, Beth is asking clarification. We'll go back to the deck. It is the 28th of October. I know that there is a question and answer deadline of October 22nd, and just having a week before the deadline for the grant will help us to answer those questions, get them posted online for others. But the deadline for submission is the 28th of October. Yeah. Anything in the chat?
Not that I'm seeing right now.
Okay.
Just send me links.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, we really, we are very, very excited about this program. It's, oh great, Sarah's got one. I'll just finish my thought. This is really the first meaningful opportunity that we have to dedicate funds 100% to environmental justice. So we just want to thank you for your interest, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions, concerns, brainstorming ideas. We'd love to hear that. And then Sarah's question, if you are a municipality hoping to apply and the majority of your city is in a designated environmental justice community, do you necessarily need to partner with a specific organization to be eligible to apply? In this instance, Sarah, what you could do to meet this requirement is to reach out to some community groups, community members, and kind of demonstrate how folks will be involved throughout the process. I think even demonstrating more than just an intent, but how you plan to involve folks will kind of meet those requirements. But if there are specific organizations that can sign on support, those will be the folks you'll be working with. Maybe there'll be more as you come into contract, but at least one community partner has to be named on the application.
That's all we've got as of now.
Okay. I'm going to leave us live for a little bit because sometimes people think about things. Yeah, but this, as I said, this webinar will be recorded. There'll also be in-person opportunities throughout the next, see, today's September 11th. We'll be touring the state through the second week in October. So those dates will be populating on our website. We have some events planned in Duluth, Bemidji, and Rochester, also Minneapolis and St. Paul, and we're looking for a site in St. Cloud. So trying to get some face-to-face time with folks to answer more questions, potentially pull together community groups and public nonprofit partners that want to work together. So those will be really great opportunities to connect in person. Yeah. Any other questions? Seeing none, we are going to wrap, but please, 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 if I go through, here is our program email. That is my work cell phone number. If you have questions at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be more than willing to help talk with you at any stage of formation for your project proposals. We do thank you for your time. Please feel free to share this webinar with other folks in your community so that they can learn more about this grant opportunity. And with that, we're going to stop recording and wish you a really, really great Wednesday. Thank you so much.